Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Smull. I am a lecturer on the faculty at the International Institute for Restorative Practices.
Hi, and my name is Henry McClendon. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the International Institute for Restorative Practices.
So today, Henry and I are going to talk to you a little bit about how the IIRP Graduate School used restorative practices to talk about the 2020 election. So we're going to talk about a proactive circle and then a circle to respond to the results. So Henry, would you like to talk a little bit about our proactive circle?
Sure. The reality is that November 4th is coming, no matter what happens. So we decided to host a discussion with our own staff. And the purpose of that meeting was to do a couple of things. One, to provide a foundation upon which individuals to identify what individuals' beliefs are based on or anchored in. To the benefits and challenges of upholding what we call our IIRP basic concepts, and then to develop a process that others could use, whether they're in a nonprofit world, education world, may even use in your own home, to discuss toxic issues. And there's probably nothing more toxic right now than the 2020 elections.
Great. And we will be sharing these agendas with all of you so that you can try to replicate this in your own organizations.
Sure.
So after the proactive circle, we decided, again, as an organization, that we want to have a circle after the election for those who want to come. So it will be a voluntary circle, and we'll focus mainly on how folks are feeling, what they're thinking as we navigate whatever happens on November 3rd. We want to focus more, though, on individuals' feelings and needs moving forward rather than who they voted for, what the broader implications of the election are. We're designing this for the workplace, so we want people to feel as if they can, again, share their thoughts and feelings, but not turn the workplace into a right versus left conversation.
All right. And Beth, I want to share that for there may be some listening to this and you're not familiar with restorative practice. The aim of restorative practice is to proactively build community and then to manage conflicts by focusing on repairing harm and restoring relationships. So the framework that we're going to share is built on that platform. So, for example, the meeting that we held last week, we called it Left, Right, and Restorative with a question mark. Is it possible to have left, right, and still be restorative? And we believe the answer to that is yes. The way we kind of laid out that meeting, we started out with a check-in. And our check-in question was one, give us one word to describe how the person was feeling about being in this meeting at that point. The second question was in one sentence to share any concern or apprehension they had regarding the discussion, and then one hope they would have for the meeting. Everybody had a chance to share. And then once we had that on the table, we created norms. If you're going to have a meeting, you want to set norms for how people agree to engage with each other in that meeting. And so the question we used was, what's one norm that we could all agree? What are norms that we could all agree upon that would reduce our apprehensions that we just identified and also support our hopes for that discussion? And we got some really good feedback from our participants in that. The next phase of the meeting, we focused on worldviews. There's a guy by the name of Stuart McAllister. He said, worldviews are not what we see, but what we see with. And so there are a lot of people who have never thought about the fact that everybody has a worldview, and often they are different. So we provided a chart of five basic worldviews. There are a lot of others, but we provided five common ones and then broke people up into small groups and asked them to kind of identify which worldview most appealed to them, and to acknowledge their own worldview, and then also to have a dialogue with someone who may have a different worldview than theirs. They did a couple of things. They identified what worldview they had adopted, and also again, asked questions of folks who had different worldviews. We then came back to a larger group and identified. We didn't mention we did this all virtually. We weren't all in the same space. When we came back to the larger group, we asked how many different worldviews were represented in their small group, and one thing they were learned or were surprised by. That took about an hour. We took a 10-minute break after that, and then we switched to focusing on the 2020 election and realized that one of three things is going to happen on November 3rd. Mr. Trump is going to win by an overwhelming margin, and there won't be any question. Mr. Biden is going to win by an overwhelming margin. There won't be any question. Or it'll be too close to call. It ends up either in the courts or in Congress. So again, this was not to identify every person in the group's political position. So we asked them to think about who are some people you've had discussions with that were either pro-Trump or pro-Biden, and giving those scenarios of what could happen in the election, how do you think they would respond? So it wasn't really about them, it was by those who they had had conversations with. And the groups, we divided them into groups, and they responded to that. And then, of course, it was chaotic in many cases, but that's where what we have, they're called 8 basic concepts, and that document will be in the attachment, but it's really important. I'll give you just a couple of them. One of our basic concepts is that we believe people are capable of growing and learning in their work and behavior. We respond to situations with people, not to them. And in other words, we're not being punitive toward them or not for, which means we're being permissive or neglectful, that we just ignore them. We separate the deed from the doer by affirming the worth of individuals while disapproving of their inappropriate behavior. People function best in an environment that encourages free expression of emotion and minimizing negative and maximizing positive, what we call affect, but allowing people to say what they really have on their minds. We are not expected to have all the answers. Instead of trying to answer or act without adequate knowledge, we need to ask others for help. We hold others accountable by giving and receiving feedback. We act as role models by admitting when we are wrong and being humble. And we help people develop competencies rather than providing answers for them. So we then gave those 8 concepts to our team and asked them, given the conflict, how might these basic concepts help create a healthy work environment, despite whatever happens, the result is on November 4th.
Great. Thanks, Henry. So after we had this meeting on Friday, we debriefed and talked about what will we do after, right? Whether that's November 4th or in the coming weeks. And we, again, want to anchor these conversations in our basic concepts, our mission statement, and would encourage all of you to do the same. What is it in your organization that is your common thread, is your common theme? So we plan to have a circle the day after, or even coming weeks after, again, voluntary. And we're going to go back to those same agreements and norms that we had from the first circle. So it's something that the group collectively came up with and supported as a team. And we're going to keep the circle pretty simple. Just what are you thinking and feeling? And what do you need to get through today or next week or whatever it may be? So again, we're designing this for a workplace. So we're not, getting into the candidates or the implications of what's going to happen next. It's just, again, how do we structure these conversations in our own settings? So we hope that, there's something that we've done that potentially you could adapt or modify for your own workplace.
There's also the graduate school. We have listening circles. Beth, you want to share a little bit about those?
Yeah, so we've also been doing series of listening circles. It goes back a couple years, but we've been doing several online to deal with just collected harms or challenges that communities are facing. So we did several around COVID-19. We did over the summer, several around race and systemic racism. And we're also planning on doing, having a training specifically for listening circles and the 2020 election. So that information is available on our website at iirp.edu. So thank you all for listening, and we hope that you found this useful.
Yes. Don't forget to vote.
Thanks, Henry.